Okay, so today we are going to be looking at lie angles, but we're going to be looking at them a little differently today. Hopefully you have at least a pretty decent understanding at this point of the importance of having the correct lie angle. I think any decent fitter, any decent club builder is going to at least spend some time trying to get lie angle dialed in on a set of golf clubs for a particular golfer. But the question I really want to look at today is, well, are all lie angles created equal? And by that I mean, having the lie angle correct or maybe slightly off on your wedge, how is that going to impact your game versus the lie angle on your 8-iron or your 4-iron? Or what about your driver? Or what about your putter? All these golf clubs, how does lie angle affect different golf clubs? And that's what we're going to look at today. So let's go. Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. Welcome to the Mobile Club Maker. I'm AJ, thanks for watching the video. So today we are going to be looking at lie angle, but more specifically we're going to be asking the question, do lie angles matter for all your golf clubs? Do they matter equally for all your golf clubs? Is having that wedge dialed in with the correct lie angle more important or less important than your 4-iron or your 8-iron or your driver? So that's what we're going to be looking at today. So hopefully you've got at least a pretty good understanding of what lie angle is, and hopefully you know how to check your own lie angle. I've got a video here on the Mobile Club Maker channel that you can check out about how to measure and check your own lie angles. It's very simple, it's very quick, it's very inexpensive, so I would definitely recommend, if you haven't watched that video, go ahead and check out that video after you finish this video. I will leave a link to that video down in the description below. So yeah, what we're going to be looking at today is how does lie angle impact your accuracy based on the club you're using. So here's the game plan for today. I've got 5 clubs out of my bag: a sand wedge, an 8-iron, a 4-iron, a driver, and my putter. We're going to take all 5 of those clubs and we're going to put them in my spec gauge. This spec gauge you use to check out loft, lie, face angle. So we're going to be using it basically for all of that. We're going to put each of these clubs in. We're going to check their loft and we're going to check their lie when they're sitting in a neutral position, that being flat on the ground. Then, and we're going to also make sure that we get the face angles zeroed out, so the face is pointing perfectly straight. Then we're going to artificially change the lie angle. We're going to adjust our lie angle knob on here and tilt the club to artificially give us a more upright golf club. So the toe is going to raise up. We're going to raise all these clubs 2 degrees off of what their neutral standard lie angle is. From there, we're going to go ahead and we're going to measure the face angle after moving those 2 degrees. And we're going to see how much changing that lie angle has changed the face angle. Once we get all those measurements, we're going to plug them in. We're going to add some spin to that, figure out what kind of hook spin you'd be seeing along with that. We're also going to factor in the distance that these clubs usually travel. And we're going to give you a total dispersion, a total distance offline you would see on average, assuming that you made a perfectly level swing going right down the target line and you would have otherwise had a perfectly square club face. We'll take all those numbers, we'll put them in, and I'm going to show you how much each of these different clubs is impacted by having an incorrect lie angle. So let's get started with the sand wedge. Okay, so I went ahead, I put the 56-degree wedge into the spec gauge, checked the loft and checked the lie angle. The loft on it, I've actually lofted down this wedge a little bit for my gapping, so it's really 54.5, not 56. Lie angle on it is 62. So we are now going to artificially change that lie angle, and we're going to see what happens to the face angle. We'll start out, the face angle is perfectly neutral, set at 0, but we're going to look what happens as we adjust that lie angle. You'll see it on this other camera, and we'll see how much that lie angle affects the face angle. So here we are, we've got the face angle set right there at 0, and we're now going to move the lie angle 2 degrees. And what do we have? I would say that is about, call that about 1.75, 1.8 maybe, degrees closed. Okay, here we've got the 8 iron. The loft is 35.5 degrees, and the lie angle is 61.25 degrees. So we're going to now change that lie angle, make it 2 degrees more toe up, and we're going to measure what we get on the face angle. And I would say that is probably about 1 point, get my adjustment there, there we go. I would say that's just about 1.3 degrees. Okay, here we've got my 4 iron, we got a 21 degree loft on it, and a 60.5 degree lie angle. Again, we're going to move it 2 degrees, see what we get. And we're going to call that about, say about 0.7, about 0.7 degrees off. All right, next, driver. Okay, here's the driver. 10 degrees of loft, 60 degree lie angle. Let's see what happens to the face angle. And hopefully you can see that. It is a very small amount. We're going to call that about 0.2 degrees closed based on that 2 degree change. Okay, one more club to go, the putter. Okay, here's my putter, 4 degrees of loft, 72 degree lie angle. Let's check it, see what we get. Okay, that was 2 degrees of change. I'm going to say that's about maybe 0.1. It's a very, very, very small amount though. Okay, so we just went, checked everything, changed those lie angles, and took some measurements. Again, here's the quick recap. The 54.5 degree sand wedge at a 2 degree lie change gave us 1.8 degrees closed face angle. The 8 iron at 35.5 degrees gave us 1.3 degrees face angle change. The 4 iron, which was at 21 degrees, gave us about 0.7 degrees closed on the face angle. The driver at 10 degrees, and this is when they start to get really small and a little harder to measure, but we got it to about 0.2 degrees closed. Finally, the putter with 4 degrees loft on it had about 0.1 degree face angle closed change based off that 2 degree change in lie angle. So what you'll basically notice pretty quickly is a pattern of the higher the loft, the more the lie angle impacted the face angle change. That sand wedge at 1.8 is a pretty big number versus going down to the 4 iron or the driver or the putter. But we can't just take that number by itself, because we do also have to factor in the distance that it's going to travel and some element of side spin. So for the distance it's going to travel, I picked out some pretty basic numbers as far as what you would maybe expect these clubs to fly in distance. So that sand wedge, I put it at, say, 100 yards. The 8 iron, 150, the 4 iron, 200, the driver, 280, and the putter, I based it off of a 10-yard or a 30-foot putt. So that's what we're going to use to get all the final numbers as far as how far offline you end up. Okay, so we also had to factor in spin, and I did that very simply. Spin can get a little tricky because, you know, it can be very golfer dependent based on how they swing, how they launch the ball, the kind of golf ball they use. But we basically did a very simple method of the more lofted clubs, we factor in the spin less than the lower lofted clubs. For the same reason that it's hard to hook or slice your pitching wedge compared to your 5-iron, kind of the same idea there. So we did a very simple multiple, 1 time for the wedge, 1.5 times for the 8-iron, 2 times for the 4-iron, and 3 times for the driver. The putter, we didn't factor in any spin because there shouldn't really be any side spin because it's on the ground essentially the entire time or close to it. So we're just not going to even bother with the spin there. So we take all those numbers, crunch them, and this is what we got as far as the end result. Okay, our sand wedge was 54.5 degrees. We had a face angle that was 1.8 degrees closed because of that 2-degree change in lie angle. Put that over 100 yards and we get a result of about 3 yards offline. We factor in the spin. The spin factor here we said was 1 time, so that gives us a total of 6 yards offline. Our 8-iron was 35.5 degrees. We had a face angle of 1.3 degrees closed. Over 150 yards, that gave us about 3.5 yards offline. We factor in the spin at 1.5 times that, and we get a total of 9 yards offline. The 4-iron was 21 degrees. It had a face angle of 0.7 degrees closed. Over 200 yards, that would give you a total miss of 2.5 yards. We factor in the spin 2 times on top of that, and we get 7.5 yards offline. The driver. The driver was 10 degrees. It had a face angle that was 0.2 degrees closed. Over 280 yards, that would give you a total of 0.97, or basically 1 yard left of target. Factor in the spin times 3, and we get a total of 4 yards left of target. Finally, the putter. The putter was 4 degrees of loft. We had a face angle measurement of 0.1 degrees. We put the distance at 30 feet, 10 yards. Over that distance, we would have a miss to the left of 0.02 yards. There's no spin to account for here because the ball's on the ground. So the grand total, again, is 0.02 yards, or 0.72 inches offline. Okay, so what can we take from all these numbers? It's obvious that that lie angle change of 2 degrees did have an impact on all of these clubs. We did see it affect the accuracy in each one of these golf clubs. But I think there's probably 3 big points to take away from this. And the first one is about the wedges. More specifically, I'm thinking your gap wedge, your sand wedge, and your lob wedge. Because as you can see, with this 55-degree wedge, we were about 6 yards offline from 100 yards out. And these are your scoring clubs. At 150 yards out, at 200 yards out, if you end up 9 yards, 7.5 yards away from the pin, we're talking about 20 feet, we're talking about 25 feet, something like that, that's still pretty good. You're not going to be too upset with that. However, 18 feet away, let's say from 100 yards, those are your scoring clubs. You'd ideally like that to be a little closer, get more birdie chances. So if you can make that happen, why not? And I think that's really important because, people will go and get fit for irons and things like that all the time, but they don't necessarily get fit for the wedges either at all or at the same time. And so you may have a set of irons that are all fit for you and the lie angles may be perfect, but the wedges may not be. And if your wedges aren't correct as far as lie angle goes, well, you can see there's some pretty big dispersions that can happen based off that. So all that is to say, get your lie angles checked, check your lie angles yourself using that Sharpie test, and make sure that your lie angles on your wedges are where they need to be, because they are every bit, if not more important, than the rest of the clubs. Secondly, I would say, as you can see, whether it was the wedges, the short irons, or the long irons, you had an impact in all 3 cases. It changed a little bit, but they were all offline. So make sure that you check the lie angle on all your irons. If you're going to go through the process and check the lie angle, don't just check the wedge, don't just check the 6-iron. Go ahead, check them all and make sure they're right, because that lie angle does have an impact. So you might as well check them all, make sure that they're all correct. Lastly, looking at the driver and the putter. The driver, 4 yards offline from that 2-degree lie angle change. That's a pretty insignificant amount at 280 yards. You're still going to hit every fairway if you're 4 degrees off. So I would say with the driver, it's a pretty insignificant change. Probably not something you need to be overly concerned about. If it's something that you can adjust based on an adjustable hosel, things like that, well, sure. If you want to change it, go ahead and change it, assuming you still like the way the club sits at setup after you do it. But I wouldn't sweat it too much. I wouldn't lose any sleep over it, because as you can see, because that loft is so low, the impact from that lie angle is pretty insignificant. Lastly, the putter. Obviously, the putter has got the flattest face, so it showed almost no change in face angle when we adjusted the lie angle. So I would say with putters especially, make sure the putter looks good when you set up with it. If it's sitting toe up and that bothers you, change it. If it's sitting toe down and that bothers you, change it. But if it doesn't bother you and you're making putts with it, then I would say don't worry about it, because it's such an insignificant amount, it's probably not worth the effort compared to just how it looks. So if you're happy with the way it looks, keep it. Okay, so we started out this video asking the question, do lie angles matter for all your golf clubs? Are all lie angles created equal? And I think as you can see, well, no, they're not. Yes, they all have an impact, but no, they are definitely not created equal. Those short irons are going to show a bigger discrepancy versus the long irons versus the drivers. And of course, the putter obviously showed almost no change because that loft is so flat, so completely up and down, that any sort of change in the lie angle is going to have almost no effect. So what to take from this? Check your lie angles, but definitely make sure you get those wedges checked, and make sure when you check your lie angles that you go and check all the irons. Don't just check 1 or 2, don't just cherry pick it. Go ahead, check them all, and make sure they're all right. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up. If you're not already, please subscribe to the channel, and we will see you next time. Bye.